we're a few minutes late since you two didn't want to start up. So I will begin with the lovely Rudolf Steiner verse. May my soul bloom in love for all existence. And as I've said before, working with young children is all about your soul blooming in love. They just radiate love, really. And so tonight's talk is called Authority, Discipline, and Obedience when working with young children. And I'm going to try to keep these talks shorter now, including next week's talk, which will be the parent night. I just think that we're all have so much going on, and we can take in concepts in shorter bits. And I'm a wordy person, but I'll try to cut it short. So anyway, the thing to know about young children, first of all, you have to live into their consciousness, and that may not be easy for some people. I know a lot of people have almost no recollection of their childhood. But a way to envision it is to begin with thinking about the fact that they begin in the spiritual world, where the consciousness is very all-inclusive, all-loving, all open, an inability to discern or close out anything. And so they come to you, and they come to you in a way that Rudolf Steiner characterized it as they imitate everything. And he meant imitation in a far wider way than just you do this and they do that. He meant it in that they take in your whole being, including the unseen parts of you, your soul, your spirit. And so you see the infant gazing at you, and they appear to not be gazing in your eyes because they are not gazing in your eyes. They're looking around you at that part of your being that isn't visible. And they look at you with total adoration, because total adoration is the state of being that we come into the world out of the spiritual, when we come into the physical world, that is. And the reason we imitate it is because we completely love all of it. We're so completely open to all of it. And so the child is just taking in everything, and everything that it takes in forms its organs. It forms its whole being, but especially in the beginning, its physical organs. And in the process is forming its soul and spirit. And they especially look to their parents and often grandparents, I'm happy to say, as I'm a grandparent, and it's such a beautiful thing. They take you in really as the representation of the creator being. And especially as a mother, you did participate in that creation in a very large way, and so do fathers, not to belittle a father's perspective. I adored my father. And he was definitely part of my creator being relationship. And so they look at you as though you are you know everything, you are everything. And so let's, the thing to know is that they are imitating you. And what benefits a young child in the greatest amount is joy, love, happiness, peacefulness, not stress, the opposite of that. And that's what benefits them the most in the formation of their organs. So they're looking to you to see how to be in the world, how to think in the world, how to feel in the world, how to act in the world. What is the world all about? You're a key person. And so as they mature, and we were speaking today about how wonderful it is to be around a young child. They change all the time. I so enjoyed putting my children to bed and waking up with them in the morning, being awake when they awakened, because you could see the difference, the amount of change that had gone on in them from when you put them to sleep till when they awakened in the morning. And what Rudolf Steiner gave us the insight into that, is that as you sleep, um, all the impressions that you've had the day before, which a child in a way takes in way more than we do. The younger, the more as an infant, the more it's true, because they can't shut anything out. We can shut certain things out that we don't like or don't agree with us, but they just take everything in. And while you're sleeping, the angelic world, the angels, archangels, archai, and so on, many higher beings, um, take that and work with it to help you form an understanding of what has come to you. So when the child wakes up the next morning, they have that is shows in their physical being. What we're thinking, feeling, and experiencing actually shapes our physical being. The way our face looks, the way your eyes are, so on and so forth. And so for me, in Star Garden, it's so wonderful. I just see them mainly once a week, and we had a week break, so I had 2 weeks, and you can just see how much they have changed in that period of time. Quite a lot more, more than just every day. So here they are modeling themselves after you. And then they, as they mature and they can sit and they can crawl, and they're so curious and exploring the world, they want your input on it, and they especially want your input in naming the world. And so this is a box, there's a spoon, here's a bowl, and playfully with them and playing with words, but that they begin to associate words with objects, and all that kind of play that you can do with them and words, and the peekaboo and patty cake and naming body parts and just singing in general. A child responds so well to singing, and that is a very good key to know with discipline, that they will listen 100% better if you sing to them what you want them to hear. They will listen to you so much better if you have a song for the bath time. And it can be anything. It can be a simple song. Let's see, here we go around the mulberry bush. Here we are ready to bath today, bath today, bath today. Here we're ready to bath today, scrubbing our little fingers. That sort of thing, where you have something that is regular. And so they respond so beautifully to that, because they were living in the music of the spheres when they were in the spiritual world, where we all return every night. And you and I, when we're sleeping, we hear that music of the spheres. And when you're in meditation, oftentimes you can hear tones and so on, and that is the music of the spheres. And so that's a very key thing to know with discipline with a young child. And so that's that first phase, is they begin to learn to walk and so on, that they're still naming the world. And then they love and really need to be in your presence as you do things. You're chopping vegetables or sweeping the floor or whatever it is, that they can imitate you, because that is their natural method of learning. And because we've been so over intellectualized in our education and the way we've been parented, we have quite a tendency to over intellectualize with young children. The disadvantage to that, from the perspective of Waldorf education, is that it takes the life forces that should be modeling your organs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, etc. It takes it all up into your brain and uses all that energy and vitality, so that your vitality is robbed. And so when you see young children who are pretty intellectual, they're pale, they don't have vitality. And so in a Waldorf classroom, you will see that a teacher encourages and works in a way that the children are able to imitate what she would like them to imitate. And not only on specific activities, but in all your behaviors and everything that you do. So it's quite a responsibility, really, as a parent. You think, oh my gosh, all those words I shouldn't have said and so on. But never you mind. All the errors are the perfect errors for your child. That's why they chose you. We came here to learn through mistakes. Mistakes aren't really a mistake, they're a learning opportunity. And that is the way to think about your child in terms of discipline and authority and guidance, is that they're just learning opportunities. We tend to think of, oh, naughty, you did this, naughty, you did that. Children aren't really naughty at all, although there are kids who are a little mischievous and so on, like to make trouble, even when they're young. But more than that, what it is that they don't have a good earthly relationship to time and space. So they do things out of place or out of time. And so that's the part where having a rhythm in your home life begins to help them learn when it's time to eat and when it's time to brush your teeth, when it's time to play in the water, when it's time to drink the water, that sort of thing. But they're not naughty for playing in their water at the table. It's just that you want them to learn how to function in the world. And so you try to give them all the opportunity that you can to do the things that they need to do, like splashing water and pouring water and so on, but not at the table. Um, and so, if they're really water splashers, they're really water babies, well, let them be at the sink before they come to the table. Let them get their splashing out. And I'm a very firm believer in having children sit for meals as soon as they can sit in a high chair so that they learn that we sit together. We all participate in this meal rather than allowing them to just run around and be fed as they run by and so on. And that is very helpful in them learning also to quiet themselves and to focus. But obviously, before the quiet and focus, if they are a very active child who needs a lot of movement, then they should be very active and getting a lot of movement. And especially, take them outside before it's time to make dinner and let them run them around, walk them, take them for long walks where they're walking. Yeah. So all the things that they're demonstrating that they need, like throwing balls, throwing rocks, and so on. Well, you don't want them throwing rocks at your window. So you find an opportunity for where they can throw a rock. You find an opportunity for them to do the things that they're showing you they want to do in the right time and in the right place. And one of the reasons that it's important to do that is in that way that the child expresses that. Like you have little climbers, they must climb, but you don't want them climbing your bookshelves. Well, first of all, your bookshelf should be hooked to the wall so it's not going to fall over on them anyway. But that's not the place to climb. The place to climb is outside in the trees or on the rocks or on the climbing structures. And maybe there's places in your home where you can safely and harmoniously set up something for them to climb. But you kind of get the picture of what I'm saying. Some children throw, some children kick, some children hit. You find opportunities for them to do the things that they need to do. They're expressing to you some aspect of their personality that's important to them for whatever reason. So one of these days I'll speak about the different archetypes of how children express that, or some of them. It's probably unlimited, really, but you can observe your children and see what they really need to do. So that's a key when they're, from say a year old to 2 years old. And then a very big key in the 2-year phase is what some people call the terrible twos, but I refer to as the terrific twos. And it is that phase of no. And that it's a very important phase for them to go through. It is a part of their higher ego coming in just a teeny bit. And them having a tiny bit of a sense of, I'm separate from you, mom and dad. I'm not part of you. When they're very young, this consciousness that they have is very much at oneness with everything. They feel like they are part of you, that you are part of them. There's no separation. There is not duality, you and me. It's just we. And so in the Waldorf classroom, and as a parent, you can express as we're going to the library today or whatever, we, because that's how their consciousness is. But at 2 years old, they have a tiny bit of a sense of separation. So they want to say no and push you away. And Steiner gave this wonderful indication about no. The sound N, he says, in the way that the tone is formed and the impact that the vibrations of that sound have on you as you say no, and it makes you stand up straight. It makes your ego come in. And think of that thing where they always said, just say no. It is an important thing to say no. But what you have to understand about a young child is 95% of the time, they don't really mean no. They don't even know necessarily what no is. It's an automatic response. And it's an automatic response also, besides what's happening in the soul physiologically in the brain. There's a part of the brain, and I think it's called the amygdala, but I don't recall necessarily. And you can research that through Daniel Amann if you want to, who did some great research on the brain and behaviors. But it's the part of the brain that gets stuck and does things repetitively and becomes oppositionally defiant. And this is where he defined it. So in a sense, you can think of a 2-year-old as oppositionally defiant. And they are, but they won't remain so. And they won't get stuck there if you can deal with it correctly in a way that helps them to move out of that part of the brain predominating. And so one of the things to do is not to get stressed out and frustrated that they're saying no, and understand that it has a basis in their need in their soul life. And to honor it when you can, but at the other hand, know that they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just expressing some aspect of their being. And so it's something that you don't want to be going up against them all the time. So that's one of the times that they say, choose your battles carefully. So they're coming up to a road and you don't want them to run into the street. Yes, you make it an issue then. But when they're saying no to, putting this shoe on or that shoe on or whatever, you can let it go a little bit. You can make, and 3 things that Daniel Amann spoke about, which are so Waldorfian, is to use humor, to distract and change the subject, and to sing. All moves them out of that part of their brain where they're going to get stuck. So it's a time to be more playful with your children than getting frustrated then, and not think of it as disobedience. It isn't really disobedience, and it's an expression of their feeling of I'm separate from you, and in order to do that I have to push you away just a little bit. And if you don't do that, if you insist that they do everything that you say they do, and if you battle with them and you come up against them head for head, you actually push them deeper and deeper into oppositional defiance, and you will have teenagers, adults that have constant issues with being defiant to everything that is of an authority. And that's not a happy place to be as a person, not a happy person at all. You're really reacting out of being stuck in a part of your being. And it's because your family hasn't, and your parents haven't allowed you and honored your stage of development. We've put more into it than is really there. And I distinctly remember my oldest son, when I'd first read about this thing about the no and helping the ego get stronger and so on with Steiner. And I was helping him get his coat on, and he's saying no. And he's putting his arm in as he's saying no. And I was like, geez, he really didn't know what he was talking about. And so that's just a little example of it. So then, yeah, so remember humor, distraction, and singing. And especially if you use those songs and verses for every little aspect, like you can see in the classroom, in the Waldorf classroom, we sing to wash your hands. We sing to say the grace. We sing to sit down. We sing to stand up. We sing to put our shoes on. We sing to put our hats on, our gloves, everything. Because singing really appeals to them. It helps to bring together the processing of different senses, is what it does. And rather than some children are more visual, some children more auditory, and so on and so forth. But singing brings in more of senses. And it's just a natural state of being to enjoy the music of the spheres. So that's one way to help with the discipline. Now, I wanted to address authority and discipline because I, I think that it's hard for parents to think of themselves as an authority. Either that or there's a tendency to go the other way and be too authoritarian, which is what happens with a 2-year-old when you're always forcing them to do what you say they must do and to be obedient. So when Steiner spoke about authority, he said it was an extremely important phase for children to experience, that they respected authority. But he said authority was not such as we think of the authoritarian, that you're going to do what I want you to do. It was more in terms of authority, to be an author, a creator, that they're going to appreciate and respect you as a creator being. And when you kind of live deeply into that thought that they should honor and respect you as a creator being, it is really that you are a representation of the higher being in yourself, the higher being that we all have in common, the creator being, and respecting that creator. And that is a law of the universe that we will, if we want to find happiness, love, joy, all those positive things that we're searching for, not selfishness, greed, and anger and hate. When we seek all those things, the law of the universe is that we will be obedient to the creator being. We will be obedient to that higher inner voice that tells us what we need to do in order to serve our divine destiny, our divine reason for being here, and what we can bring to everyone in our service to the world. And so a child needs to be brought in a very gentle way, in a way of imitation, in a way of humor, love, joy, fun, lots of activity, to respecting you as the higher being authority. And then when Steiner spoke about discipline, and my mentor spoke about it quite a lot, and I've had a really good feeling for it. Discipline has to do with the word disciple, which is really someone who is seeking wisdom from a higher source. And so discipline, it really has to do with helping guide your child so that they can be put in touch with wisdom. And so much of the time, more of what we're doing is acting out of our subconscious, which, as I've said to people over the years, when you're having challenges with your child, more often than not, it has to do with your subconscious reacting to your child in the way that you were reacting to your parent at that age. So at 2 years old, when your parent was dominating you and trying to make you do everything they had to do and so on and so forth, your inner reaction to it was to create this frame of mind, this frame of feeling that you play over and over again. And when your child misbehaves in the same way, it sets that off in you. So that's where your child becomes the great mirror to show you what's going on in your inner life, in your soul life, so that you can come to terms with these little inner battles that you had with your parents and so on. Not just parents, but aunties and so on. And it helps you to come to terms with the kind of falsehoods that you've learned about life. Um, yeah, and your parents have falsehoods. We all have falsehoods that we're sharing with one another. And it's all an opportunity to learn to get closer to the true wisdom that lives in all of us. So it is important, what Steiner said was that it was important that your child respects you and others as an authority, meaning the creator being. Because if you didn't come to that sense of that as a child in the first 7 years, that it would be very hard, if not impossible, for you to come to that relationship to your higher self as an older adult, in really understanding and being in a close and harmonious, evolving relationship with your higher self. And the other thing I have said to people about authority and having how important it is for your child to be respectful to their parents, and for the father to insist that the child's respectful to the mother, and the mother to insist that the child is respectful to the father. One of the other reasons that it is so important is if they don't respect their parents as an authority, they will have trouble in society, in the culture, respecting authority. So for a child, that will mean trouble with their relatives, trouble with the teacher at school, respecting authority. And then that graduates to trouble with the principal. And then that can graduate to trouble with the authority, the police, and the law, and so on. So you really want your child to learn respect and to learn obedience, not as being in servitude, but with deep respect. And so one of the best ways to do that is to just from the very beginning be so respectful to your own child. And even as an infant, just to respect their complete beauty, their purity, their love, their openness, and always to speak to them respectfully, and to behave towards them respectfully, but firmly. And so I've noted over the years the parents whose children seem to get along really the most easily and harmoniously are parents who take really a good lead and a good charge. So, in other words, the parent acts like a captain of the ship or the pilot of the boat or whatever, that you're the one who has the vision of where it's going and how it's going to get there. That doesn't mean they can't go this way and that way a little bit apart from you, but you're the one who really pictures the day and leads the day and guides them through all their activities. So let me see if I covered all the things I wanted to. Yeah, I think I got to most of it. And yeah, yeah, that was good. And the next time I hope to carry that forward. And so thank you so much. I hope that was helpful to you and gave you a feeling for working with children. And anytime you're having a challenge, the evening when you go to bed, really ponder, what is this challenge about? What is this activating in me that I'm responding in a way other than being loving? And try to get to the heart of what it is that keeps you from doing that. And then, very helpful to envision the little episode that troubled you with your child, or but Yeah, the one that really had made some impression on you before you go to sleep, and ask the child's angel and your angel to give you guidance with it. And when you wake up, either you'll wake up with an insight, or in the next time that comes around with your child, you'll deal with it differently. You'll deal with it in a more evolved manner. Or you may not have to deal with it at all because you resolve the problem spiritually in your sleep. So let's end with that beautiful verse. May my soul bloom in love for all existence. And thank you, and good night. And I love you all. Bye bye.